northeastern Iowa, heart of the state's dairyland, you'll find a community with a refreshing attitude. It's Waverly, Waverly, Iowa. A small city, yes, but steadily growing. You can see it in the scores of new homes around town, homes that speak of the ambition, the success of Waverly folks. The city's growth is mirrored in local industry, energetic, far-sighted firms interested in the future of the entire community. Waverly, Iowa, on the banks of the Cedar River, a city that's become an important part of the Iowa scene. Let's go into downtown Waverly, through busy streets filled with people, cars, and trucks, and pay a visit to the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber is a good place to meet that refreshing attitude we mentioned. In most chambers of commerce, you expect the hard sell, but not here. On the contrary, you're told that Waverly is pretty much like a lot of other progressive communities. No, you don't get a big pitch here. You'll hear that Waverly, just like other cities, offers industrial opportunity. Civic progress is evident, you'll be told by chamber members, in the growth pattern of Waverly, just as it is in other communities. But you won't be bombarded with superlatives. So, just what does Waverly promote? Actually, it's the simple, old-fashioned, refreshing truth that to achieve community growth and progress, you must make the community the type of place where people want to live.
And growth and progress toward a better community is precisely what defines decades of work for the Waverly Chamber of Commerce. Formed in 1937, the Chamber proudly celebrates a rich history of service to the community. From humble beginnings, the Chamber was created to serve as a resource for Waverly businesses, providing a forum for the exchange of ideas with the goal of improving the socio-economic well-being of Waverly. Created at a critical time in the city's growth, Waverly saw a 23% incline in its population in the 1940s, and an additional growth of 24% in the next decade, representing a 47% growth in a 20-year period. The industry was diverse and the city was growing. The Chamber remained a stronghold in Waverly, fostering community pride for businesses and residents.
I came back here after having retired from the Air Force. My association with Waverly began out at the what was the air base. It was called the 788th RADRON, Radar Squadron. I was originally from Palo Alto, California. My wife is from Shell Rock, and she preceded me here, and so when I retired from the Air Force, my wife was already here. The job came open in late '78, and I started the chamber work in 1st of January 1979, and I stayed in the position 11 years until December 1989. So I'm the longest serving chamber exec that they've had in the organization.
The 1970s and 1980s were a difficult time for Iowa, and the early 1980s recession led to the collapse of commodities prices, a decline in rural and state population, and rural flight. Waverly, however, fared better than most communities in the state thanks to its diverse industrial base. With Industrial Development Committee goals involving work with the Iowa Development Commission on spec building recruitment and volunteer board positions that monitored national and state legislative issues, the Chamber played an important role in presenting a strong front in the face of adverse times.
The four industries that we had, the major industries, were all diverse, and they were all weathering the economic downturn. We were doing better than a lot of Iowa communities because we weren't directly tied to agriculture. A number of our second-line industries were in some form of agricultural business, but it wasn't a good time for those 10 years in Iowa for the economy. And so the chamber took on what the board of directors wanted to take on. It did the economic development, and we put up what we called the spec building out in the Northwest Industrial Park. The building did sit vacant for a number of years, until we finally sold it to Rada Manufacturing. So Rada has expanded it a number of times from the original building, but the Chamber Development Company did put that up.
We were starting to grow and look for a home back in 1985, and it played a role in keeping us in Waverly because it was ready. You know, the structure was up and ready to go, and so we purchased that.
Even more impressive, during a time of economic struggle, the Waverly Chamber of Commerce successfully rose to the challenge of obtaining a U.S. Chamber of Commerce accreditation, strengthening the overall organization, allowing it to provide critical services during a difficult time in the state's history.
The U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Washington sent in a representative to go through to be sure that we were doing what we said we were doing. It placed our chamber in the top 10% of chambers nationwide. So there weren't very many chambers in a town of 8,500 people who were an accredited chamber. And it spoke very well of the volunteer leadership that we had on the board and on the committees, that they would go through this process, because it was not an easy process to go through.